Cora Ellery stepped off the buckboard at the Thorpe Ranch with the reins of her whole future in one hand and the reins of her whole conscience in the other, and both her girls hidden in her skirts. The driver, a taciturn old cowhand named Peck, set her small trunk down on the dirt yard, tipped his hat to the widow, and climbed back up. He clucked to the mules and pulled out of the yard without looking back, because he had gone 28 miles from Billings and it was supper time. Cora watched him go until the dust settled, then she turned toward the porch. The rancher stood on the porch step in his shirt-sleeves with a small dark-haired boy at his elbow. He was tall and lean, in his mid-30s, sun-brown, with a straight brow and a mouth used to keeping still. He had his hat off. He was polite. He was looking at her carpetbag and at the trunk on the dirt and at her. His eyes moved down. He saw Prue 5 at Cora's left knee. He saw Emma 3 at Cora's right thumb in her mouth. Cora's stomach dropped through the boards. She said before he could speak, "Mr. Thorpe, my name is Cora Ellery. I answered your posting for a ranch cook. I did not mention in my letters that I have 2 little girls. That was wrong of me. I was afraid the position would not be offered if I did. I am willing to turn around and start walking. I only ask that you give me the fare back to Billings first because I have $4 and would not make it. I will pay you back for the fare out of my first month's wages if you decide when I get to town that you would let me try the position without the girls. I have a cousin in Bozeman who would take them if she was willing, though I do not have money to send them. I am sorry, Mr. Thorpe. I have not slept in some days worrying about how to say this." She stopped because she had run out of breath. Emerson Thorpe stood on the porch step and looked at her. His face did not move. His son Bennett, 7, she remembered from his letters, stood beside him with a small stick in his hand. He had been whittling and stared at the 2 girls the way a boy of 7 stares at another kind of animal he has never seen up close. Emerson Thorpe put his hat back on his head, then he took it off again. He said, "Mrs. Ellery, come up on the porch. Bennett, run and tell Grandma Iva to put on another 2 plates for supper, little one size." Bennett looked up at his father. "2 more, Pa." "2 more," Emerson said. "Little ones, run." Bennett ran. Emerson came down the porch step. He picked up her trunk. "This trunk is heavy, Mrs. Ellery. Come inside. You look like you have been holding your breath a week." Cora Ellery came up the porch step with a girl on each hand and did not trust herself to speak. Inside, at his plank table, with Grandma Iva at the stove pretending not to listen and Bennett cutting his eyes at the 2 girls from the far bench, Emerson Thorpe sat down opposite Cora Ellery and said what he had to say. "Mrs. Ellery, I posted for a cook because my mother, who has been running my kitchen since my wife died 4 winters back, has been called back to her sisters in Kansas. She goes on the Friday stage. I need a cook. I would like a good one. I would like one who does not steal my sugar and who does not scold the hands more than they deserve. That is the whole of the position." He paused. "I did not post for a wife. I did not post for a mother for Bennett. I did not post for 2 little girls at the table. That is not what I asked for." Cora looked at her hands. "But," he said, "I have a 7-year-old son who has been the only child on this ranch for 4 years, and every time we go to town, he presses his nose against the window of the schoolhouse looking at the other children. I have watched him do it since he was 3. My wife and I lost 2 babies after him, both stillborn, and there were no more. Bennett has needed sisters. He has needed sisters for a very long time, and no arrangement I have made has arranged it. I would say the Lord has arranged it now, and I do not usually say a thing like that out loud. Your girls stay. Your job is the kitchen. The girls' job is to be children. They will be treated on this ranch as they would be treated on your own porch." "That is my word." Cora put her hand to her mouth. She said when she could, "Mr. Thorpe, I do not know how to thank you. You cook a good supper, Mrs. Ellery, and I will consider it thanked." Grandma Iva at the stove said, without turning, "Emerson, I like her already." Bennett, still on the far bench with his stick, took a long look at Prue. Prue, who was 5 and old enough to sense a shift in the weather of adult conversation, gave him a small, careful smile. Bennett said, "Do you like biscuits?" Prue nodded solemnly. Bennett said, "So do I." Bennett said after another moment, "The barn cat had 4 kittens last week. If you like, I can show you tomorrow. The gray one is a boy and the 3 others are girls. The gray one is the pushy one, but the smallest girl is the smartest. My father says animals are like people that way. Most of the time." Prue looked at her mother for permission. Cora nodded once. Prue turned back to Bennett and said, "I would like that very much, thank you." Emma, from her mother's other side, took her thumb out of her mouth long enough to say kitten, which was one of the 6 words she said. She put her thumb back in. Emerson Thorpe watched this small, careful negotiation happen across his own kitchen table, and did not move. Cora Ellery's first month at the Thorpe Ranch was the month a person lives through when they wake every morning waiting to be told the job is over. She cooked, she rose at 4 to build the range fire, she baked bread on Mondays and Thursdays. She fried side pork and eggs at first light for Emerson and his 4 hands Peck, who had brought her from Billings, and the young Nordvig boy Silas, and Grandpa Cheever, who had been on the ranch since before the war, and the big kind Nebraskan called Root, and she washed up before she sat down. She fed the girls their own bowl of cornmeal at the kitchen bench. She let Bennett eat with his father at the plank table because that was his place, and Bennett came halfway through his eggs and put a piece of his bacon on the girls' bench without saying anything. Grandma Iva left on the Friday stage. She hugged Cora hard at the door and hugged both girls harder and told Emerson without lowering her voice, "Son, if you let this woman go anywhere, I will come back from Kansas and take a switch to you." Emerson said, "Yes, Mama." He did not smile, but his ears went pink. Cora watched him drive Grandma Iva to town in the buckboard and thought, for perhaps the first time since Colin had died, that she might have work she could hold. She threw herself into the work. She learned the range. She learned the wood. She learned Grandma Iva's biscuit recipe by taking it apart at the counter and putting it back together in a form that would rise in the tin oven and did. She learned the names of Bennett's pony and his 3 barn cats. The girls learned the ranch. Prue took to the henhouse and by the end of the 2nd week was the household's official egg gatherer, marching down the yard every morning in a little apron with a small basket and returning with usually 5 eggs and 1 lecture for a chicken who had disappointed her. Emma took to Emerson. Wherever he was at any hour, Emma was somewhere near his elbow, thumb in her mouth, saying nothing, watching him. He said nothing about it. But when he sat on the porch step to whittle, he made a small space beside him for Emma to sit down. She sat down. Bennett took to Prue. He showed her the calves. He showed her the barn kitten. He showed her his stick collection and let her pick 2. Prue kept them under her pillow. At supper on the 12th day, Bennett, halfway through his stew, said, "Pa, Prue don't have any boots that fit." Emerson looked at Prue's small brown boots that had been at their tightest for a month. "No," he said, "she doesn't." He looked at Cora. "Mrs. Ellery, Peck is going to Billings on Saturday. Would you make me a list? Boots and dress goods for the girls, anything else the kitchen wants, anything the household wants. Write me a good long list, please." Cora said, "Mr. Thorpe, I have not yet drawn a month's wage." Emerson said mildly, "Peck goes to town in 3 days, Mrs. Ellery. He is not going to know about your wages either way. Please write a list." She wrote a list. Peck came back on Sunday afternoon with a wagon full, and boots for both girls, and 3 yards of good calico Cora had sighed over at the bottom of the list, and pretended was only there because the paper had a line left. Prue put her new boots on the porch step and stared at them a full minute. Then she went inside and put them on and marched around the kitchen and put her hands on her hips and told her mother, gravely, that they fit. Cora went outside to the pump under the pretense of drawing water and cried against her apron. Autumn came slowly to the Thorpe Ranch that year, and steadily. Emerson began to walk with Cora on the evenings when the crew was in the bunkhouse, out to the pasture fence to look at the yearlings. He did not talk much, she did not either. They spoke about the herd and the fall roundup and Grandma Iva's letters from Kansas, and after a while about other things, Bennett's schooling, which Cora had begun to organize, her own girlhood in Michigan, his in Nebraska. He told her about his wife Marta, who had died 4 winters back of a lung sickness that had come out of nowhere on a Tuesday. He told her plainly that he had thought when Marta had died that a house could not be a house again. He said, "It is a house again." She looked at him, she did not say anything. He said, "I know I did not post for a wife, I posted for a cook. I am not asking, I am not going to ask until you know your own mind, but I want to say it so that when the time comes you will not have to wonder." He kept walking. "I'm not the man I was 4 years ago, Mrs. Ellery. I'm a widowed rancher with a 7-year-old boy and 40 head of hens. My daughter, I mean your daughter, Prue, counts every morning. I have a good ranch and a good hand and a good horse. And I have not looked at a woman in 4 years and looked at you in 6 months, and it is a plain fact of my life, and I would be a poor sort not to say so. When you know your own mind, tell me. Any answer is welcome. The position is yours either way if you want it, cook, or wife, or friend, or just the mother of 2 little girls I am now attached to. Any of them, all of them, none of them. He stopped at the fence. He said, I have said my piece. Please do not answer tonight. I want you to think. Cora looked at him a long moment. Then she said, Mr. Thorpe, Emerson, thank you for saying it. I will think. She thought. The winter came in on Thanksgiving. Prue helped Cora bake 3 pies. Emma helped Emerson bring in wood. Bennett helped Peck haul water. The crew ate at the long table with the family. Grandpa Cheever wept over his second slice of pie and told Cora it was the first true pumpkin pie he had eaten since 1868. Root sang 2 verses of a hymn in his big kind bass. Bennett, at the end of the table, elbowed his father and said, Lo, Pa, is Mrs. Ellery going to stay? Emerson said, I hope so, son, I have asked. Bennett said, I hope so too. Cora heard both because the table was small and pie is a quiet dessert. She looked at her hands. That night, when the crew was asleep in the bunkhouse and the girls were asleep in the west room and Bennett was asleep in his own bed with a stick under his pillow because Prue had put one of hers there, Cora walked out to the porch in her shawl. Emerson was already there. He was smoking a pipe he did not usually smoke. He turned when he heard the door. She said, Emerson. He said, Cora. She said, I have thought. He said, yes. I did not come to you looking for a husband. I came to you looking for a job. I did not think a husband was for me anymore. Not because I do not want to be loved. Because I did not think there was a man on this side of the Missouri who would want a widow with 2 children. I have thought about it every night since you spoke at the fence, and I have kept coming back to one thing. That when you saw my 2 little girls hiding in my skirts on your porch step, you took my trunk. You did not take a breath. You did not weigh a thing. You took my trunk. He said, yes. That is the man I would say yes to. That is the man I have been saying yes to in my heart for a month without telling either of us. Yes, yes, Emerson, if you would still have me. He set his pipe down on the porch rail. He came across the porch and took both her hands. Cora. That was all he said. That was enough. The circuit preacher married Emerson Thorpe and Cora Ellery in the parlor of the Thorpe Ranch on the 2nd Sunday of December. Grandma Iva rode in on the stage from Kansas with a wool scarf she had knitted for Cora and a pair of small gloves each for Prue and Emma. Bennett stood witness on his father's side in a coat too big for him. Prue and Emma stood witness on Cora's side in their best calico dresses, and Prue held Emma's hand hard so Emma would not put her thumb in her mouth during the service. Afterward, in the low, bright light of a December afternoon with the pastures white and the pump handle frosted, and the crew hollering at each other from the bunkhouse, Cora stood on the porch step with Emerson's arm around her waist and watched her 3 children run down the yard to feed the ponies a piece of shared apple. She said softly, so only he could hear, Emerson. On the buckboard from Billings, I told myself if you turned me away I would find another place. I said it out loud so the girls would hear it. I did not believe it. There was no other place. He said there was this one. She said there was this one. He kissed the top of her head. Grandma Iva came out onto the porch behind them with a plate of shortbread and said, Come inside, both of you, before those children eat the ponies out from under themselves. And Cora Ellery Thorpe, who had stepped off a buckboard 6 months ago with 2 little girls hidden in her skirts and no idea what she would say if she were turned away, walked back into her own kitchen with her own husband's arm around her shoulders, and understood that a good job in the good slow way of a good slow country could turn out to be the good whole rest of a life.